Welcome back to City Challenge 2012, where we are in the final build-up to the feature race of the weekend here, Baku in Azerbaijan. And this street race, unique one-off event that has been hosted here in the country, the first international motor race in Azerbaijan in its history, is just about half an hour away from getting underway. The drivers are making their way out of the pit lane and onto the grid in bright afternoon sunshine. And this is the final hurrah of what has been a busy weekend. There's Jacques Villeneuve, the Indy 500, IndyCar champion and Formula One champion as well. He shares a car with Grand Prix driver Jos Verstappen, and you can see there a number of the cars waiting to head out onto the grid for the final time. It's been a long time coming. They have had a day of free practice to learn the circuit, to get the cars dialed into a new track and brand new tyres prepared by Hankook, which none of the cars, we understand, have raced on before. Brand new city circuit, nobody had any idea about it when they arrived here earlier in the week, and the drivers have had to learn its foibles, its nuances, where the bumps are, where the grip is, where the grip isn't, and of course that has changed throughout the weekend as the track has got used more and more. They've had a qualifying session for each of the two drivers in each of the cars. Each driver has then had an individual 30-minute race in his car before handing it over, hopefully intact, to his teammate to do his 30-minute race. And it has been the accumulation of all of that on-track activity that has set the grid for the finale, which is a 60-minute two-driver pit stop encounter. So, as in all forms of sports car racing, whether you are at a brand new circuit or one that's been going for the better part of 100 years like Le Mans, it is about teamwork. It's about the drivers preserving the car for their teammates. It's about teammates helping themselves and helping their colleagues out, their co-drivers. And of course, with the pit stops being a factor and a compulsory tyre change, it is about the mechanics as well. There you see Bernd Schneider, five-time DTM champion, and a man who has a lot of sports car racing experience as well under his belt. Now, part retired, I suppose, is about as close as it is to taking it easy that Bernd Schneider can get. He drives a number 6 Mercedes here, one of two Mercedes SLS AMG machines, partnered with young Russian Sergei Afanassiev, and they start in 5th position on our grid. They have a great opportunity. That car seems to be getting quicker and quicker all weekend, and they will be looking for a podium finish. Lots of love from the Azerbaijan capital for everybody who's been visiting here, whether you're with the teams and the mechanics, the drivers, and there you see Schneider and Afanassiev with a beard in the helmet, or whether you are with the TV production, with the organisers, with the hospitality, with any of the facets of a modern motor race, the welcome has been with smiling eyes and open arms. The people of Baku have certainly made themselves very popular here. They've thrown open the doors of the city, and they've thrown open the arms of welcome as well, and have voted with their feet coming into these grandstands. Since Friday, for free practice, the grandstands were at least half full, and now on race day, as they hear the noise of the cars once more, they're coming back to the racetrack from all the activities that have been going on around it, bringing their friends, their families, wives, children, husbands, parents, grandparents, all coming down to see exactly what motor racing looks like close up. Well, I'm Martin Haven, alongside me David Addison, and David, approaching this 60-minute race, I think the drivers are expecting this to be really hard work. Physically, it's demanding in terms of punishment in the car, constantly working, you never get a chance to relax, and also the temperature inside the car. Even though it's not swelteringly hot outside, it will be swelteringly hot inside these cars. So physically and mentally, it's going to be very draining indeed.
And there's also that concentration needed to make sure you keep away from the concrete. And really, it's not easy to overtake around here, as we saw yesterday. And therefore, if you're ahead of the pack, trying to defend is all important, and making the car as wide as possible. But in order to do that, you've got to be focused all the time on what's going on behind you, in the mirrors, and what's ahead of you. And this race, more than any other that we've seen this weekend, is going to be about traffic. Now, yes, in the 30-minute races yesterday, we did have the cars catching up to back markers. But in this race, with pit stops, and the pit stop has to last for 75 seconds, you're going to be released inevitably into traffic. A pit stop is longer than a lap from coming into the pits to leaving the pits, it's got to be to this set time of a minimum of 75 seconds. So however hard you try, it is almost inevitable that you'll get out within a group of slow cars. Having to work your way round them is part of the battle in this race. Some of them will peel off ahead of you and make their own pit stops, yes, but you're going to have to negotiate some of those back markers. The marshals are going to have to be on their toes as well with the blue flags. That mean there's a faster car behind, pull over and let him by. And as the field now makes its way up onto the grid, the fans are about to see something completely different, because although they've now watched racing around here, they haven't yet seen what you might term a long-distance race, a mini-enduro with pit stops, with driver changes, with tyre changes, and with the guys in the pit lane playing as key a part in this as the man behind the wheel.
Well, lots of colour and lots of spectacle around this Baku city circuit, and plenty to keep people entertained day and night. I gather it went quite long into the early hours of the morning. The clocks going back here in Azerbaijan, as in other points of Europe, allowed at least 1 extra hour of the very limited number of hours sleep that some members of the fraternity had, not just among the teams here, but particularly, I'm sure, amongst the local population. And the grandstands are a little slow to fill up early this morning, but now they are absolutely jammed. You can see lots of kids down at the front of the grid in local costume, and almost everybody here bearing the colours, the blue, red and green of the Azerbaijan flag. Some local mythology being reflected in the figures on the grid. I have to confess that not even Wikipedia, other search engines are available, could possibly be quick enough to tell me what is being reflected, but clearly it means something to the locals here.
Stilt walkers are there, the musicians are there with the drum beats, and local rap dancing as well. So as the colour of Azerbaijan is reflected on top of an international category of motor racing, GT racing, we are just about set for the culmination of what has been a very busy 2 weeks, because work only started 11 days ago to build this circuit. And okay, it's claimed a few victims, it's narrow, it's short, it's sharp, there are lots of 90-degree corners, but a race circuit in Baku has been built, it has been run. We've already had 2 good GT races this weekend, one of which gave Matthias Lauda his first ever car race victory, and the other fell, perhaps not unexpectedly, to Fred Makaviki, and he made history by being the first man ever to win a motor race in Azerbaijan. And
he may well be the man to win the 3rd race here as well, because it is his car that starts on pole position. He shares it with Stef Dusseldorp. It is a McLaren MC12. MP4 12C even, and they will start on pole position. Their teammates, Robel Alvaro Parent, will start lined up behind them in 3rd place, although Rob said, frankly, he'd rather be on the outside, as the driver steered of the grid, in 4th, because he made a good start from there. There's more elbow room, because you can go across the runoff area at the first chicane if you need to. Said from 3rd place, he may well end up getting jumped. On the other side of the grid, from the 2 McLarens on the front row, as we'll see shortly, are 2 of the Vita 4-1 racing team BMW Z4s, Frank Ketchler and Matthias Lauda, their car on the outside front row of the grids, and Matthias, as David said, taking the lead at the start of the 2nd race from the slightly sleepy Stef Dusseldorp, not literally, but metaphorically, because he completely misjudged the speed at the start. Lauda went blasting by him, as did Alvaro Parent in the 2nd McLaren, and as a result Lauda ended up winning the foreshortened race, and Jelmer Berman, Nicholas Meyer-Meinhof start in 4th place, row 2 of the grid. So we've got 2 McLarens, 2 BMWs. Behind them we've got Mercedes and Ferrari, with Bernd Schneider, Sergei Afanassiev and Stefano Comandini and Matteo Bobi. A whole variety of different supercar brands on the streets here. And for some of these fans, it'll be the first time. I can't imagine any of them will have seen a Mercedes SLS in the flesh. Certainly, David, after 3 days of driving around, we've not seen a Porsche at all on the streets, other than the odd Cayenne, so that's not quite the same thing as a 911.
No, not a sports car have we seen, not a Ferrari,
no.
Not a Porsche, not a BMW coupe, nothing that would fall into the sports car, or in this case supercar category. So it is a real eye-opener for all concerned this weekend. And even if they have seen them before, they won't have been as noisy as these cars.
Yeah, that's for certain, yes, they may have seen them. Certainly they'll be aware from pictures, from movies, from TV, from the internet, of everything that's going on here, a lot of the fans, but being 20 metres from them, with the noise contained by the buildings around you, that's a very different thing indeed. Even walking around the circuit on Friday during free practice, for those of us that are used to motor racing tracks, again, the reminder of just how close and how loud everything is on the street circuit was very evident to us. And even from up there on the nth floor of their apartment building, great view. You can see how high they are, binoculars trained. It's almost like they're in a commentary booth.
With a fine view overlooking the circuit, which is this mixture of first and second gear corners with a couple of reasonably fast straights. The back straight gets you up to about 180 kilometres an hour. The pit straight is actually the fastest, and the speed builds because the first couple of corners are right and left kinks. Then you get to a 90-degree corner, so approaching that, you're coming close to 205 kilometres an hour, which around here is very good going indeed. And it's at that point you realise how narrow it is, and trying to do any overtaking, and we did see some of that yesterday going into the first few corners, is not easy, but there is good runoff on the outside of what's turn 3, the first proper corner. As I say, turns 1 and 2 are these kinks, and turn 3 is a proper right-hander. And there, getting out of the car that's going to be on pole position, is Fred Mako. Fred Makovici, the French driver, who has become very much a GT star in recent years, but like so many on this grid, he came out of single-seater racing, former French Formula 3 Class B champion, the promotion class, and in recent years he's been racing and winning in the Carrera Cup France and in GT cars for Hexis Racing, Philippe Dumas' team. Whether it was an Aston Martin last year or a McLaren this year, he just goes so well, and he's one of those drivers that whatever you put him into, any sort of a car these days, he will always be a real star in. Lots of people go on about Maxime Martin being the real benchmark GT driver, but Fred Makovici is very much a star as well. Let's hear a bit more about Fred Makovici now.
We would like to win, but it's the same for everybody. I think so. The level is really high, and it's great to know a new city because and to have the opportunity to come for the first time in Baku and Azerbaijan. And if everybody are happy that we are here, it's the same for us. And I hope so we can continue to do something like this in the future, some races and maybe a championship.
Well, Fred starting on the outside of the front row of the grid, and this is the car that will challenge him there in the dark shades, Matthias Lauda. And for those familiar with his father, Nicholas Andreas Lauda, Niki Lauda, they will recognise the features very clearly of Super Rat. He looks so like his dad. Let's hear a little bit about what he thinks about this Baku City Challenge.
To be honest, I have a strong teammate. Frank is a really quick driver, so our goal is to win. Right now was the first time I went out, and it's really a difficult circuit. It's not easy, very challenging, because in these tracks you're not allowed to do mistakes. Every mistake you end up in a wall, and normally when you end up in a wall the whole weekend is finished. The level of the driver is really high. The whole field, we have ex-DTM champions, ex-Formula 1 champion, ex-GT1 champion, all kind of racing champions all mixed together in one race. It's fantastic.
Well, for those who are familiar with Niki Lauda, he not only looks like him, he talks exactly like him. He sounds like his father. And he is in a position here to go out and win a race. Now, right behind them, row 2 of the grid, we've got the two teammates, but Stefano Comodini is the top starting Ferrari driver in Michael Bartel's V41 Italy team. There he is, getting ready to get into the car. Let's hear a little from him on his thoughts.
Very beautiful because the people is closer to the race. It's beautiful to race inside the town, the cities. But it's, the only thing that is bad is the walls. The track is very thin, and the walls are very close to the car, so it's very easy to have an accident. But for the rest, it's beautiful. It's great.
Stefano Comodini was a real revelation yesterday, since you looked down on Bernd Schneider there on the grid. Stefano, regular prototype driver, now turning his attention to GTs this weekend in the V41 Team Italy squad. Matteo Bobbi's satellite operation. There's 5 times DTM king Bernd Schneider, but also a man, of course, who raced in Formula 1 for Zakspeed, and also the FIA GT champion. There he is, Bernd Schneider.
I'm 5-time DTM champion. Do you need more? As a race driver, of course, it's very challenging here. The walls are very close, and between hero and zero, it's maybe less than an inch. As I heard that a lot of people can watch the race at TV. This is very promising for Baku, but also for the car manufacturers, of course. It's helpful to selling cars, and I hope we can sell some over here.
Ben Schneider, not only a quick peddler, but a ferocious dry wit as well. Do you need to know more? No, frankly, Bert, I think that pretty much said it all. There's the sister car from Heiko Motorsport. The other Mercedes rather starts a little further back on the grid. And again, in these temperatures, David, even though it's not 40 degrees here, we're not in the heat of Bahrain or somewhere, you know that the moment you put your helmet on and close the door, you are going to be getting into a very hot sauna. So all the drivers taking as much time as they can in the fresh air.
Some cars with the doors open, others, like the Porsche sitting next to the Mercedes here, with a reflective blanket on top of it to try and get rid of some of that heat deflected away. And it's going to be around about a 30-minute stint for the drivers, one of whom on the grid is Maximilian Buch.
It's my first time on the street circuit, and small mistakes can end up to the wall. So I look forward what will come, and I will give my best. The wet track is my biggest weak point, yeah. I hope it stay like this. If it stay dry, I think we can manage it to be in the top 10 or top 5.
I'll tell you what, at most racetracks you go to, there will be somebody somewhere who's going, actually, do you know what, I wouldn't mind if it rained. I absolutely guarantee there's not a single driver on this grid that would even remotely countenance not minding if it rained. If it rains, it is their worst nightmare. There are, of course, rain tyres here, but they've done no running on them, and the circuit they have no experience of in wet conditions would be very, very difficult to handle indeed. Thankfully today, as you can see in the shots here above us, are bright blue skies, only a thin smattering of high clouds. I think rain is a zero option, and that is just as well. Well, one of the stars in our cars, Jos Verstappen and Jacques Villeneuve. Let's hear from them, see what they think about their first visit to Azerbaijan.
It's a great concept, it's a great event. It's actually, for the first time like this, it's really well organized. You need to be fast, but you also need to know when to be aggressive, when not to be aggressive. So there's a lot more than just driving fast and setting the car up as well. So I've always tried to be good at everything, but you always make mistakes. There's always a moment where you make a mistake and you learn. You continuously learn, so you're never perfect. I think we're all excited to get into the race because, first of all, it's fun to drive on this course. But then the level of stress is a little bit higher than normal because there's no margin for error. And when you're on your own, it's already difficult. But in traffic in the race, it will be a little bit crazy, and that should be a lot of fun.
To be a good city challenge driver, I think, first of all, stay over the walls, I think is very important. And then, even then, find the limit with the car, run as close as possible to it. And that's hard because the track is bumpy. It's hard to see what happens after the corner. It's just a matter of build your confidence between the walls and stay over it. So for me, it's a lot of things to learn in a very short period. And that makes it, of course, that makes it very interesting.
Well, very interesting, very intense for both Verstappen and Villeneuve, neither of whom are familiar either with the car or like anybody else with this circuit. Well, a flyover from the outskirts of the city of Baku, the more traditional homes outside the modern high-rise centre of this brand new city. And so much, the old town still remains, but so much of this waterfront area where we are now is has been created in the last 10 years or so. And now the crowd rising for their national anthem. Well, you can see a huge number of Azerbaijani flags in the crowd. On the government building right over the pit lane. 40-metre long white construction. Again, that bought by a company and imported for use in this race, and they will then go on and use it for and everybody sing for the national anthem. The drivers will be belted into the cars, into the sweatbox they will go, and then the real pressure business of the day will begin. As you can see, shimmering heat haze on the grid, lots of light-hearted banter and a little bit of nervous energy being expended. But in a minute or two from now, it will be time for everybody to get into the zone. 100% focus, absolutely nothing else will do around this city circuit, because the tiniest error will be replied with by the concrete walls with extreme severity. You do not have a small accident on a street circuit unless you are very fortunate indeed. So we are getting close to the start of the action here in Baku. Baku in Azerbaijan on the Caspian seaboard. It is the capital of Azerbaijan, the republic that was formed in 1918 and regained its independence from the Soviet Union in 1991. It's a mixture of ancient cultures and thrusting modern youthful exuberance, and it is the venue for the 2012 City Challenge, a unique one-off street race featuring some of the best GT cars and drivers on the planet.
This event is a little bit different from all the motorsports events in the world because it's a combination of artists, music and big children event. So it's an event for the whole family. We are looking always worldwide to good destinations, and you need special places to do this. And I was invited from a friend of mine to come to Baku, and immediately we identified this is the place to do it. Beautiful city, beautiful people, and big support from everybody.
Well, it is a beautiful city and a very welcoming one too. And for the first time ever, international motor racing coming to Azerbaijan has brought the crowds out. They have voted with their feet. There is not a free space along this track. 2.2 kilometres of humanity around the sides, and all the grandstands are full. The grandstands, like everything else around this city circuit, has been created from a standstill in 21 days. They have produced a racing circuit in a country that has no racing history, and it's not just attracted the locals. We've had some big name drivers arrive and stars from abroad as well.
It takes the first 2 laps to get used to it. The G-forces, especially on the City Challenge course, is quite strong. So you know, I just had breakfast in the morning, but we had a good driver, so it felt good. I just have a movie coming out with myself and Russell Crowe and the RZA, produced by Quentin Tarantino, called Man with the Iron Fist. It's being released November 2nd in the United States, November 29th in Germany.
If you compare James Bond with Quentin Tarantino, where's the difference?
You know, I think Quentin is less serious. Thank you.
Rick Yoon, the Hollywood actor, who was Zhao in Die Another Day, the James Bond film, and having enjoyed some passenger laps in the Porsche out on the circuit. Question, was he shaken or stirred or both? Well, we're getting ready for 60 minutes of racing around the capital here. David Addison and Martin Haven trackside, looking forward to what promises to be a fabulous race. 2 30-minute races we've enjoyed thus far, one of which I'm afraid was interrupted with red flags. We'll talk more about that as we go through the build-up to 60 minutes of racing with mandatory pit stops and driver changes as well. And this is something else new to the fans. Down in the pit lane, Jos Verstappen, one of the star drivers here this weekend, sharing a BMW with Jacques Villeneuve. And they had a pretty good run yesterday, the pair of them, with 2 race results being a 9th and an 8th. In fact, Jos did slightly better than did Jacques Villeneuve. He was the man in 8th in the red-flagged second race, and he drives one of the 3 Vita 4-1 BMW Z4s. So we're almost set to go racing here in Baku.
Cars are on the grid, ready for the 1-hour, 2-driver City Challenge race here in Baku. And the tension mounts, the grid is just about to be cleared. So let's see our starting lineup. On pole is the number 17 McLaren of Fred Makiewicz and Stef Dusseldorp. Alongside them starts Frank Ketchler and Matthias Lauda in the BMW. Both of those cars won the 2 sprint races. Rob Bell starts 18, the McLaren in 3rd, and Jelmer Berman will start the 2nd of the BMWs on the outside of the front row, second row of the grid. Bernd Schneider starts Mercedes number 6, and alongside him on row 3, Stefano Comandini in the 1st of our Ferraris. Karim Al-Azri starts the number 9 Milner Motorsport, the fastest Porsche. Mike Parisi in the Heike Motorsport number 7 car, and behind them Louis Machiels and Jacques Villeneuve completing row 5 of the grid. Well, we have 20 cars out on track, beg your pardon, 19 cars now out on track, including our sole remaining Chevrolet Corvette. That's the RBT Racing Team car, which Gert Beisel will start. Its sister car, the 28 machine, one of a number that are being withdrawn with damage, and it was that car, David Addison, the accident in race 2 that brought the race to a premature halt.
Yes, unfortunately, in fact, both the Corvettes had accidents. One hit the barrier early on, and also some oil had gone down, so those 2 incidents had to be sorted out and the oil treated on the circuit. But then Jörg Eberhardt's Corvette had a huge hit into the wall coming out of the last chicane, and he punched the concrete blocks way back and did a huge amount of damage, not just to the circuit but to the Corvette as well. And the race, with 17 minutes to go, was stopped and not restarted, and the grid is based on the points scored in theory across races 1 and 2, but actually with race 2 being stopped, they've taken your qualifying rank from that and added it to the points from your race position for race 1. It all is a bit jumbled, granted, but what it does give you is an intriguing grid. It also gives 1 or 2 a get-out-of-jail-free card, like Bernd Schneider, because he had a good run. He finished 5th, where Sergei Afanasiev got a tap from behind and was punted into a spin and ended up only in 15th place, and that in itself was a good recovery. But because of the way that the points have been worked out, they get themselves back up the pecking order because he qualified the car well enough for his own individual race.
Yeah, so what it means for us is that race incidents haven't necessarily deprived us of a real front runner at the top end of the grid, which is great news for us, great news for them. It's win-win all round. Looking there at the 57 Ferrari, Stefano Comandini, top Ferrari on the grid. The Vita 4-1 Italy Pirelli car, and now into the front 2 rows of the grid, just in front of this car. It started by Bernd Schneider, 5-time DTM champion, with young Russian Sergei Afanasiev. Afanasiev having his first race in this car. Now, we were told that Schneider was starting. That is Sergei, so it is the Russian who is starting. And the teams were asked to nominate their drivers, so they played their cards a little closer to the chest than anyone was expecting. They start 5th. Jelmer Berman, it is Herman Berman's son who is in that car 35. He starts in 4th place on the grid in the BMW. 3rd place with a repaired gearbox. Rob Bell went out this morning in warm-up and parked the car very quickly. Something had gone wrong on the right-hand side of the car. It's a mechanical issue in the gearbox, which has been stripped, rebuilt and replaced, and Rob said, fingers crossed, that it will last the race. This is a development year for the McLarens, and of course they haven't done a bumpy street race before. One thing that bumpy street races do is bust transmissions, and that's even if you stay away from the wall. So certainly McLaren will learn a lot from the data they get back here. In front of Rob Bell, starting on pole position, is Fred Machiavici, and he is the man who won from pole position the first of our sprint races. There's the outside front row starter, Frank Ketchler, with Matthias Lauda taking the 2nd start. And these GT cars, well, they're based on road-going supercars, Ferrari, McLaren, Lamborghini, Corvette and so on. Modifications to the engine, to the brakes, to the suspension, full race equipment in terms of safety, fire extinguishers, fuel-safe cells, and of course full racing tyres supplied uniquely to this event to all the teams by Hankook, so there is no tyre advantage, no tyre disadvantage, and indeed all the teams very pleasantly surprised by the performance and especially the life of the tyres around the city circuit. It is the toughest environment for a racing tyre. They have held up remarkably strongly, so hats off to Hankook. They brought over 800 tyres here. They've got wet weather tyres mounted on wheels. David, as they set off on the first of the formation laps here, it doesn't look like we're going to be needing those.
I don't think we will, no. Thankfully, there are lots of other tyres here as well, because 276 tyre stacks had to be imported to make this circuit that grew in just 11 days. You can look at the grid as we scroll through now. Martin's talking about how the front of it lines up, look lower down the order. The likes of Stefano Comodini are going to be worth watching in the best place Ferrari on the grid. Milner Motorsport, running Porsche number 9 there, has the slower driver Karim Al-Azari going first, and the same is going to be true of the sister car number 8. Nick Tandy will go second. Mark Thomas, who actually is Canadian but lives in Baku, he will go first. And what that is a team hoping for is that, well, A, the car gets into the second stint, hopefully it will in all cases, but also that there is a late race safety car, and that is why teams where they have a Pro and an AM use the Pro second, because you can't afford in a late race safety car to have your slower driver in. You need to have the quick guy in at the end. Now, of course, they are racing against a number of teams who have 2 Pro drivers, and they are always going to have the advantage, unquestionably, around here. But up front, is it going to be a McLaren or a BMW victory? It was one each yesterday, wasn't it? Matthias Lauda won that short race 2. Fred Machiavici won race 1, under pressure, admittedly, all the way through. But we'll now see how it pans out in this 60-minute final. It's the 2-driver race, a mandatory pit stop. They have to change drivers, they have to change tyres as well. The mechanics, just 2 of them, will change 4 wheels and tyres. Now, the time taken from coming into the pits to leaving the pits has to be a minimum of 75 seconds. If you go over that, it's only to your disadvantage, and if you go under that, then you will be called back in for a stop-go penalty to make up the shortfall. So even if you miss out by 1 second, you still have to make another pit stop and be stationary for 1 second, and you lose even more time, of course, by driving down the pit lane. So again, emphasis here, Martin, pressure on the teams to make sure they don't muck up in those pit stops, because it's going to have really bad consequences.
Every element of endurance racing features every person in the team. The mechanics, the brains on the pit wall, and of course the nut loose behind the steering wheel. The crowd are absolutely ready for this. They've been wound up all day long by the classic Formula 1 cars, by the drifters as well, who brought the crowds to their feet. And now, as we get ready, a final formation lap being led around by the silver, red and black McLaren. It'll be very easy to tell the McLarens and the BMWs apart at the start. Of course, the BMWs with that lurid, broad turquoise stripe. And then from above, you can see the predominantly white Mercedes on row 3. BMW and the predominantly black Ferrari alongside it, ahead of two Porsches. Here we go. McLaren BMW, safety cars in pit road. 60 minutes of racing is about to get underway. The first ever City Challenge race in Baku, Azerbaijan. Red lights are on, field being paced by our race leader, the pole sitter Fred Machiavici, on the bottom of your screen. Watch the lights, watch the response. It's a long hold and away they go. Great start from both BMW drivers and from the Ferrari. Second, fourth, go to first and third. No, they don't. Machiavici gets the McLaren in front. The BMW's second and third. Rob Bell in fourth place on the grid. The Ferrari up to fifth, ahead of a very quick starting Porsche. And that was the number 9 car of Karim Al-Azri. He made a great getaway.
And he also had to go a little bit wide and avoid the curb, but he went over the escape tarmac as the leaders worked their way for the first time. Up now from turn 7 towards turn 8. Drivers in the pit bunker watching on. It's Machiavici leading the way then, being pursued by the BMWs at the moment and going strongly. Both the cars in the hands of up the inside there, Kekler trying to find a way by. You got Rob Bell in fourth place, Comodini's fifth, and Drama in the background. 1 or 2 running really close up against the wall.
That was the 2 Mercedes made contact. Afanasiev, who got punted off at the beginning of race 2 yesterday, being a little cautious, got jumped by Al-Azri in that Jaguar Porsche. A Jaguar the sponsor rather than the manufacturer. It's not a new motor racing tie-up, but he got run into by Mike Parisi, his teammate. So clearly Afanasiev being a little cautious for Parisi's liking. Those 2 Mercedes are 6th and 7th as the BMWs are jockeying for position, looking for a challenge here. Jelmer Berman in third place, looking to try and get a pass on Frank Ketchler in the 33 car. Didn't, but he needs to because he's got a queue of cars behind.
Yeah, now what do they do here? Do they play this as the team game and get the slower BMW out of the way? Ketchler already has lost chunks of time to Machiavici. He was 1.4 seconds back at the end of lap 1. Now this is Ketchler hard at work. He's in second spot. He's trying to defend, but also he needs to get everything up to temperature, especially tyres, and then he can push on behind Machiavici and try and reduce that deficit he's got at the moment. Third behind him there is Berman. Fourth is Rob Bell, and proving, of course, that it's so hard to overtake around here. With fifth spot at the moment is Comodini in the Ferrari, and sixth, Karim Al-Azri, who is doing a very good job at the moment. That car elevated on the grid by the efforts of Sean Edwards, second in race 1 yesterday, but Al-Azri just has to stay there and keep it off the walls.
Made a great start. He's getting the flash from Sergei Afanasiev in 7th, Mike Parisi in 8th. The white and blue Mercedes run by the same team, just a different sponsor package. So the 2 cars are identical except for the colour. Afanasiev needs to try and make a move, but at the moment out front, Fred Machiavici looks like the McLaren is in a separate class. They all run to the same rules, but they are developed slightly differently, different weights and measures and power restrictions to try and balance the cars out, and so much of it comes down to what the driver can do. And at the moment, you're right, David, it does look like the BMW in second with the red mirrors. Frank Ketchler there is holding up Jelmer Berman. The problem is, if Berman didn't have Rob Bell right behind him, Ketchler could might maybe, probably wouldn't, but could move over and let Berman go by. The danger for Ketchler is if he lifts off the throttle, Berman's not the only car that'll go by. If Berman can shake off Rob Bell in fourth in that second McLaren, then there might be a change around. At the moment, Parisi in the background, looking at Afanasiev, the second of the Mercedes, trying to get by the quicker of the Mercedes, or the better placed of the Mercedes, and I'm not sure if that has happened or not. We're going to have to take a look on a long shot.
Leader over the line then, Fred Machiavici at the end of 2 laps, led by 1.4. It's now 2.1. That car for the moment looking unstoppable. Second and third, Ketchler ahead of Berman, and then it's Rob Bell in fourth there as he flashes through shot. Comodini doing a good job fifth. Sixth is Al-Azri. Seventh is Afanasiev keeping at bay. Mike Parisi, and then there's a big gap opening up between the leading 8 and then the opposition. Filing through behind ninth, in fact, is Jacques Villeneuve, and in 10th place is Mark Thomas in the second of the Murner Porsches, and there into the pit lane comes 15, which is Felipe Fernandez-Lazar in one of the Carrera Cup spec Porsches dramas very early on for the Molitor run car.
Well, you're not allowed to make your compulsory pit stop until at least 25 minutes of the race has elapsed. We've still got 56 minutes to go, so we're 4 minutes in. That is not an expected pit stop. You saw the team having to come out, rush out to the driver, so he has come in with a problem from what was 12th place ahead of Nicky Team. There is the Mercedes, and that is now starting to close again a little on the Porsche in front. So Sergei Afanasiev, the Lukoil-sponsored Russian driver, keeping Mike Parisi at bay, but he is now settled in. I think he probably feels more confident. He's starting to close in on the Porsche and the Ferrari in front, because they're being dropped by the top 4 cars.
Now also being dropped is Jelmer Berman. His last lap was nowhere near as good as Frank Kekler, who did a personal best and pulled away by 0.8 of a second. So Kekler now lapping fractionally quicker than Macaviki. It's going to be fascinating to monitor the lead gap, as there you can see Afanasiev still defending from Mike Parisi. The 2 Mercedes running together at the moment. They are in 7th and 8th places, and Parisi, I think, getting a bit frustrated here. He's being held up by his less experienced in GT terms teammate Afanasiev ahead of him, but where oh where can he find a way through? It's hard enough at the best of times, but he lines up to have a look down the back straight, heading down towards turn 9, realises that is not on, slots back in behind him. So they go left in 2nd gear, they go right in 2nd gear now, but he's not able to dive up the inside there either.
Well, even with that rate of approach, he'd have needed another full 2 city blocks to overhaul his teammate. Don't forget, those 2 cars, different colours, but identical under the paintwork or under the coloured wrap. They are exactly the same AMG Mercedes, and so you get a bit of a run going, but you need a long time to overhaul him without help.
News that car 15 Porsche grazed the wall. That was why that came into the pit lane. So number 15, the Lazar Porsche, touched the concrete and has pitted as a consequence of all of that. Full marks at the moment, Martin, to Karim Al-Azri, doing a very good job in the Porsche as Afanasiev runs up against the concrete there. But the white Porsche from the man from Dubai is doing a superb job. Karim Al-Azri in 6th place, and with Sean Edwards to take over that car in the 2nd stint, and they'll bring him in early when the window opens. That car is looking pretty strong.
Yes, you're absolutely right. He's done a really stellar job, up into 6th position from 8th on the grid. And, you know, it is possible to make up ground at the start when everything's a bit confused, but it is so easy when there's no tarmac runoff areas, no curbing even to ride up. It is so easy to become a 0 and not a hero if you have an ambitious start. And full marks to Al-Azri. He really made the most of that. On board with Frank Ketchler, the BMW, the Vita 4-1 team. And Ketchler now has settled in. We saw this in race 1 with Jelmer Berman. He started slowly, dropped down the order, and it turns out it was from poisonous fumes from paint burning off inside the car, because they fitted a different type of new exhaust to it. But he started strong here, and it seems that Ketchler has now recovered. Replay of the start. The idea is to try and get all the cars going through the grid markings on their respective sides of the grid. Look for the Porsche up the middle. Great start. Dives by both of the Mercedes and stays on track. And Mike Parisi got in front but had to wait. You saw him slowing right down there and stopping a queue of cars. David, on the right-hand side of the screen here, Parisi avoids danger but knows he can't make up places or he'll get penalised. Drops back in behind his teammate. Good thinking.
Now, somebody else has had strife on that last lap, Mark Thomas in the number 8 Porsche. He's dropped about 4 places, unfortunately. As you get a replay of the start from on board with Jelmer Berman, watching Fred Macaviki secure that lead, and Frank Kekler looking for a way past him. And there is Steph Dusseldorp, Fred Macaviki's co-driver, who's looking at a lead now of 2.6 seconds, although Kekler is the man who has done the fastest lap of the race, going strongly. And you mentioned also how Comandini was looking for a way round, really on his toes at the start of the race. Well, he is under investigation for a full start. So Comandini is under investigation, possibly for a jump start. And there, as I said a few moments ago, having grazed the wall, the 15 Molitor Porsche is in the pit lane, and it's not looking very well.
Looks like the right rear tyre is pointing not in a straight line, not forwards and backwards, but pointing a little bit more as if it's trying to turn right. And that's not a good thing on any car, and it looks as though there's broken suspension on there. You saw the white-haired figure of Franz Conrad, who's running his own 2 cars here, going over to take a look. Because, of course, anything that might happen to one car might happen to the others on board in the Mercedes.
Afanasiev now has got double trouble in a sense. He's trying to attack and he's also trying to defend, because he's being spurred on by Parisi behind him, and that's carried him onto the tail now of Al-Azri, so he's a bit stuck. He's got to try and find a way past the Porsche, but the danger is he leaves the door open and the sister Mercedes nips past him as well. We've almost done 10 minutes of racing. We're almost at the end of the first 6th of the race as the leaders work their way over the line, but the best battle is building up nicely here now. The 6th, 7th and 8th, Porsche, Mercedes, Al-Azri, Afanasiev, and then Mike Parisi.
Last time round in that white and blue Mercedes, the second of the two you're looking at here, Parisi closed back up onto the tail of Afanasiev in the Lukoil car by 9/10 of a second, and on the street circuit that is a big margin to be finding. So he dropped back a fraction and then rushed up towards his teammate to try and carry the momentum onto the back straight, but it didn't work for him. Afanasiev, is he pulling out of the way now? He is. Now that's very savvy driver from the young Russian. Much better not to keep yourself in that pressure cooker of emotion. And let's think now what's going to happen in Afanasiev's mind. Right, he's quicker than me, I let him go. The next thing that Parisi does is attack the Porsche. The Porsche gets offline. Bingo, we both get a place, so I get my place back, and Mercedes is a double winner.
Indeed, and there's the replay. Afanasiev does the team game, doesn't he? Plays the team game, lets Mike Parisi go by. Mike, a much more experienced GT racer, the Frenchman. Sergei Afanasiev, single-seater start, as over the timing line comes Fred Makovicky. Now, what is this lead gap? He's done the fastest lap of the race now, Fred Mako, and he's 3.3 seconds ahead of Frank Keckler. In third place is Jelmer Berman. Fourth is Rob Bell in a McLaren that's perhaps not 100% really after it was whacked into the concrete by Alvaro Perret yesterday. Fifth is Comandini, still under investigation. Sixth, Al-Azri. Seventh is Parisi. Comandini goes a little bit deep into turn 3 there. So now this is the one to watch, because Al-Azri in the Porsche, who is no slouch back home, very successful within the UAE GT Championship, the touring cars prior to that. He now on a circuit which is, of course, not just new to him and new to everybody else, but a type of circuit, street circuit, very new to him as well. He's got to defend as best he can from the Mercedes behind. So you've got a much more experienced GT racer, and you've got Karim Al-Azri under huge pressure now.
I tell you what, Rob Bell is feeling the pressure as well. He is dropping back. Little mistake here in replay from Stefano Comandini. But Rob Bell, the leaders are doing 1 minute 4.5 seconds. Rob Bell is doing 1 minute 6. That's 1.5 seconds slower. It's not going to be long, even with little mistakes like that by Comandini, before he catches the fourth place to McLaren. And of course behind him you've then got Al-Azri, you've got Parisi, and you've got Afanasiev all closing up.
You've also got back markers, because we had a replay of the 66 Porsche running across the escape road, Christian Bracker, and he has just been lapped there by Rob Bell. The leading quartet has gone past that car. There's also been a change of driver, because Christian Bracker was yesterday sharing with Timo Rumpkeil, and today by Beitske Visser, the young German girl, takes over the car as well. So we've got then the Mercedes of Parisi ahead of Al-Azri. The switch around has happened, and now Afanasiev looks for a way past as well. It hasn't quite worked out, this plan. If you were hoping to nip past that car, it's not worked. So now Mike Parisi working his way in 6th place out of turn 8 onto the back straight. Now you're riding with Afanasiev now, looking for a way to get himself up past the Porsche, but it's not going to be an easy task, this. 48 minutes to go, and remember that at the 25-minute mark, the pit stops, the mandatory pit stops can happen, but what the teams don't want to do is bring their car in at the same time as lots of other people do and risk it getting boxed in the pit lane. So they've got to manage the traffic very well in terms of when they bring the car in. They've got to manage the traffic well in terms of when the car is released, as there is a replay of Parisi's very brave move up the inside. But to be fair, Al-Azri gave him racing room. He didn't really make a big issue out of that. And this is the replay of Rob Bell lapping the Christian Bracker Porsche. Jos Verstappen watches on, ready for his turn behind the wheel.
Yep, so Parisi moves up the order, and that then gives an indication to his teammate Sergei Afanasiev in the red and white Lukoil Mercedes on board with him now, of where he might find the Porsche weak. And that's one of the things on street circuits, you know, particularly for Al-Azri, as with Sergei Afanasiev, if you keep defending, eventually somebody will have a lunge at you and you will pay the price, both of you probably, because if you accept that he has got a quicker car now, you can survive for the rest of the race. If you don't accept that, if you refuse to accept it, inevitably one or both of you will end up in an incident and the concrete walls will be the winners there. So good move by Al-Azri. He saw Parisi was coming and committed. Open the door, let him go. Let's fight on, because this is a long race.
Now, what is also building up nicely is the fight for fifth. Stefano Comandini, who is not going to have any action taken against him for the start. No further action taken, says the race director. Comandini is being caught by Mike Parisi, who in turn, therefore, is getting away from Al-Azri, who is holding up Afanasiev. As their number 14 Porsche is lapped. That is Elia Earhart out of Carrera Cup Deutschland. And Fred Macavicchi has gone past. There are two back markers between now the McLaren and the BMWs, which have got themselves together once again, look, because now Kekler is under pressure once more from Jelmer Burman. So those two cars running nose to tail. Any team orders here, I wonder?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure that there would be. I think perhaps Afnasiev might have had a message on the radio to say, why don't you let him go and see if you can follow. I think with the BMWs that they will probably be allowed to race their own game, and that might go actually, as we see them coming through traffic here, we saw the gap yo-yo between the BMWs and with the McLaren, which don't forget was over 3 seconds ahead before they hit traffic. Might explain Rob Bell's lap and a half or second and a half loss 3 or 4 laps ago. He may well have caught a slower car in the wrong place, and that can definitely cost a quicker car a lot of time, because Rob Bell is now lapping as quick as the leaders are, so it may well have just been one lap where he caught somebody coming out of the pit lane or recovering from an incident.
So we're currently on lap number 14. Laps go quickly around a 2-kilometre circuit like this, and up front it remains Fred Macavicchi now with 2.3 seconds in hand. And Hexis, to be fair to the team, very, very good on pit stops. They proved that in GT1, they proved it in the Blockplan Endurance Series race that it did at Navarra at the end of the season. So in terms of pit work, there's no real threat there. But to the eye, that gap looks like it's come down now from 2.3 seconds. Maybe Fred Macavicchi has been a little bit impeded somewhere on this lap. There's no more traffic suggesting it's in the way, but certainly that gap looks a little bit down. What's the sectors showing us? 2/10 were gained by Kekler in sector 1, and a big jump of 4/10 gained in sector 2. Now, what's going on with the McLaren here? Fred Macavicchi, in the first 2/3 of the lap, is certainly losing out to the BMWs, and first to third has all going to concertina up at the end of this lap.
I was about to say we're now 15 minutes in, so this is roughly halfway through the stint for the first driver in most of these cars. You're probably looking at trying to make it 50-50 when you've got 2-star drivers in your cars, as these machines have. But it does look like Macavicchi has just started to open it up again.
The gap down 2.3 to 1.7, so time was lost on that previous lap, and now he starts to, as you say, open up the gap once again as he approaches traffic as well. So Fred Macavicchi, perhaps he's trying to measure this so he encounters the traffic as an easy place to overtake, but I think it's rather a difficult art to do that, even with the track map and the car graphics on it that the team has on the pit wall. Anyway, for now, Macavicchi holds sway, and in the first sector is by a 10th quicker than Kekler, so yes, the gap opens up once again.
Well, he's got 2 slower cars in front of him, the first of which he has just shot by, and that is Archie Hamilton, son of 1950s Grand Prix Le Mans winner Duncan Hamilton. There he is in the Conrad car. The 2 BMWs are right behind. Next car in front. Now that's going to be a slightly different proposition. That is the number 8 Porsche, the second of the Mulder Motorsport cars. So he's going to catch that maybe halfway around the next lap. No, he is coming up fast behind it here. So what he really doesn't want is to get it from turn 5 before he gets to the back straight.
Burman is getting very toey, looking for a way past Kekler. He had a look going down towards turn 3. You're riding with Burman now. And the mirror image ahead, if you like, the sister car, is that in the hands of Frank Kekler. So, 43 minutes to go. Mark J. Thomas, the Canadian, who lives here in Baku, is lapped then. And that's a bad state of affairs for Nick Tandy, who will take the car over, but it's going to be hard to pull back that lap from here now. So, Macavicchi is up front as Burman pulls out of the draft to have a look on the inside of Kekler, but he can't find a way through there as they turn their way now through turn 9. Wide part of the circuit, this. It's okay if you're going to lap somebody, and Mark Thomas gets out of the way of Kekler, but it's still very hard to do a genuine overtake for place. Thomas keeping out of the way there. Burman ducks up the inside, and the 2 BMWs make it through without much time lost by either car.
Well, of course, Burman loses more time because the Porsche on the outside there made the track effectively half as wide, so he had to turn much tighter, couldn't get on the power, so he does lose a bit of time, not as much as if he got stuck fully behind. But again, look at the gap that the McLaren has opened back up, out to 2 seconds at the line, and only 0.85. Of course, one thing that has happened as Burman there with the yellow highlights in car 35 has closed up on teammate Frank Kekler with the red highlights. They've started to battle now, and that allows Macavicchi a little bit less pressure. Kekler cannot concern himself exclusively with the fastest way around the track. He's got to find the fastest way around the track that doesn't involve Jelmer Burman coming alongside.
And Burman just losing a length or so through that last sequence of corners, but he's certainly got the pace to push on. Yesterday, with those fumes coming into the car and some paint burnt away, that really affected him, and he got mugged early on, lost a whole heap of places. not his best performance, but now we're seeing what Jelmer Berman is capable of, and of course all this on the back of a massive accident at Donington Park at the end of the GT1 World Championship season, when the concrete wall went back a fair old way, and Jelmer, who was certainly concussed, lucky to get away, as Kekler runs wide, and he has to come right back across the road and defend from Jelmer Berman. It was a mistake by Kekler. He swung back across the road and defended from the Dutchman, but as they come onto the pit straight now, they're nose to tail, and Jelmer Berman there had an opportunity, but it was taken away from him by Kekler sticking out his elbows and hanging onto the place. And can Berman do anything about it here into turn 3? No. Turn 4 is not a passing opportunity, nor is 5, but if he gets a good run onto this straight, he might be able to challenge under braking for turn 6. And look now, Makovici is storming away. Kekler making that mistake at the end of the lap, oh so nearly lost the place to Berman.
And it hands a massive opportunity to Makovici, because these two are now one hand on each other's throat, wrestling for second position. Hey boys, should come the message from the BMW pit wall. What about the guy in the McLaren? Now behind him in 4th place still is the number 18 McLaren of Bob Bell, but there's a battle coming up for 5th, and you know, it wasn't, the danger there wasn't that Jelmer Berman nearly got by. The danger was that the BMW nearly lost a wheel. How close was that? That's how close. When your teammate throws his head in his hands, you see the reaction there. There is a great battle right behind Stefano Comandini with Mike Parisi's Mercedes right up his exhaust. They were 0.3 of a second behind last lap, and they are very close still. Parisi looking for a way by. So we've got a battle here for second, catching the 66 Porsche for the second time as it goes through, and we've got a great battle shaping up as well for 5th position.
So Jelmer Berman is on the tail of Fred Kekler, all of this playing into the hands of Fred Makovici, who's getting further and further away. 20 minutes done, just under 14 minutes of the race remain now as these cars work their way onto the back straight, and this is a part of the circuit where you can reach 180 kilometres an hour. It might be a point and squirt street circuit, but when you have got a chance to open up the cars, then they reach some pretty impressive speeds. 205 km/h coming over the timing line, for example. Now Kekler, after his wobble at the end of the previous lap, has sorted himself out. He's starting to edge away once again, and now, as we approach the pit window, we're about 4.5 minutes away from it. Steph Dusseldorf, it's one of the drivers getting ready. There's Matthias Lauda, who will relieve Frank Kekler, and he's going to find himself in a real bear pit, isn't he, in a battle with the sister car, which Jelmer Berman will give over to Nicolas Marmelboff, who you saw a few minutes ago looking rather relieved that the car had no damage.
Well, now listen, you're the boss of the Vitafor 1 racing team, sitting on the pit wall, Mikael Bartels. You've got your two guys here kicking 8 bells out of each other for second place. Who calls the pit stops? Is it the guy in front who decides when he's coming in, he gets first choice? What about Berman? What if Berman wants to get out from underneath Kekler by stopping a lap earlier? Will they both want to come in immediately? Will they both want to go halfway through? Yeah, if you put fresh tyres on at 25 minutes, the fuel load is a lot lighter. They will give you as much grip all the way through the race as if you stop at halfway, because you know, you've got the heaviest car at the beginning, and here's the battle for 5th position. The 57 Ferrari just squeezes by the Porsche, and through behind him comes Mike Parisi. That is about as close as they have come to each other. They've been 3 to 5 tenths of a second behind, and great work by Parisi to get by that Porsche just and stay in front of the Mercedes.
Stefano Comandini having to really make that car wide to fend them off, and of course the pit window is imminent, so we'll see shortly who's going to dive in first. Comandini, I would think will come in soonish, because he's not as quick as Matteo Bobby, so it makes sense to put Matteo into that car. Frank Kekler, is he quicker than Lauda? I reckon he's going to pay them to keep Kekler in that car for just a little bit longer. Berman is certainly quicker than Marmelhoff as well, so maybe we'll find them going a bit longer. Just to recap how we stand in this race in terms of the regulations, you've got to make a driver change, you've got to change all 4 tyres. It has to be no less than 75 seconds pit in to pit out, and there's a very short 10-minute window after 25 and before 35 minutes of the race are done. You've got to pit then or else.
Yes, if you don't, or if you undercut the 75-second duration between the pit in and the pit out timing line, then you will pay a penalty for it, which far exceeds any time you might have gained by staying out a lap, coming in a lap early, or indeed leaving the pit lane early. On board once more in 3rd place, and this is a battle that will run and run. There's the 3rd of the Vitafor 1 car drivers. Jos Verstappen, teammate Jacques Villeneuve is in 9th position. That's pretty much where they were in yesterday's sprint races. And they are looking to try and make a little move up the order in the second part of the race, if they can. Both new to street racing in GT cars. Both have done it in Formula 1 and other single-seaters. In a GT car, that's entirely different. It's easier to place a single-seater. You can see where the wheels are.
Now, this battle certainly delaying the BMWs. The gap has opened up 4.7 seconds now. Fred Makovici is ahead of Kekler. Running third, remember, is Berman. 4th is Rob Bell. In 5th is Comodini. 6th is Parisi. 7th is Al-Azhari. And that Porsche is still in the game. Sean Edwards is going to be one to watch late in the race. Of course, lots of teams possibly anticipating a safety car in the second stint, and that will bring people closer together again. If you can stay on the lead lap and there is a safety car, you're going to luck in. Somebody's got up the escape road there.
Now, that was wide, and it didn't look like a Porsche. I would like to see what was up the safety road, up the escape road there. A balloon coming off the crowd. That is the race leader coming up behind the second of the Vita 4-1 Italy cars. That is the 58 machine. Never mind the balloon. Who shot up the escape road in front of the battle for second place? He's a charmed life, isn't it? I didn't know balloons had 9 lives as well as cats.
Well, the yellow flag is out at turn 11, so whoever is up the escape road is still up the escape road. And we'll try and get news on that. We can possibly work it out from who has dropped out the order. It might have been Comodini who went up the escape road there. Now, there is a sister car, lot 58, which is in the hands of Louis Macchio's, about to be lapped by Fred Makovici.
It's 27. It's 27, the Corvette, because that has not moved and is shown as being in the pit road, which it clearly isn't. So there it is. It looks like no damage. He's kept the engine alive and got going once more. And once more, right in front of... That is still the leader trying to get by that Ferrari. A lap later, trying to put the car a lap down. It is car number 58, which has been very awkward to pass. Blue flags will be waved furiously at Louis Macchio's. He will receive a penalty if he doesn't let him go. He goes through, and the BMWs are very close, David, once more.
Indeed, nose to tail, held up by Gert Beisel in the Corvette, so Berman has another chance heading into turn 3, but again, there's just not the room, is there? Frank Kekler defends, he puts the car exactly on the right part of the circuit. They're 4.4 seconds back now from the race leader. The pit window, as you can see, is open, so we'll get some of the slower drivers coming in early and waiting for red lines to appear on the timing screen. And in has come Karim Al-Azhari, in has come Sergei Afanasiev. There they both are, down the pit lane now. Porsche in, Mercedes in. You see what Heiko Motorsport is doing. They're going to stagger those cars at least 1 lap apart. Yeah. And now the mechanics, only 2 are allowed to change all 4 tyres. They're going to be really fit to do this because it's a very, very physical task.
Very balletic as well, because you don't just do them in a particular order. Some of your teammates may help you and take your place as you come round to the other side of the car. As you can see there, the only man who's allowed to work on the car apart from these 2 tyre changes is the driver, who belts in his co-driver, Sergei Afanasiev there, closing the door on Bernd Schneider, and 1 tyre left to go. This is a nice, neat tyre stop. They were rehearsing this morning in morning warm-up, and they've done a good job. They're not costing time there. The air gun, come on, do it up, do it up, do it up.
You've also got Al-Azhari in for Sean Edwards, and there in is the...
That's a 58 car, I think.
Macchio's for Greg Franchi. That gets Louis Macchio's, and in will get the Belgian driver. So again, the teams here trying to get 1 car in on a different lap. Away goes Bernd Schneider, and you've also there, look, got Rob Bell in to give way to Alvaro Perez. So that's the first of the leading cars that have pitted, of course. That was higher than the Afanasiev Schneider Mercedes. Wheels off, wheels on. Well, behind the wheel now.
They've both broken bits on that car, so Rob's handing it over to Alvaro with 33 minutes remaining in the race.
And that gets that stop out of the way, so it won't impede the leading car when that comes in.
You see, you want to do the far side before you do the near side, because otherwise your gunman is stuck on the far side with the hose. Car is dropped, and in front of it, Philip Eng's Porsche will depart. Now, that was about to go a lap down. Don't forget this. McLaren came in 4th place. And our race leader is still the other McLaren, Fred Makovici. Number 36 is now up to 8th position. Yet to stop, though. So we have had 7, 8 cars on pit road already, but they're not all among the front runners.
BMW battle continues. Look in the background, and Frank Kekler is staying ahead of Jelmer Berman. So as they work their way now onto the back straight, we're still intrigued to see when those cars are going to come in.
I'm saying Berman wants to come in this lap. Villeneuve and Verstappen have been got out of the way. That's done. It's now these two cars for fighter for one. If I'm Berman, I've been stuck behind this car the whole race. I want to give my teammate at least something else to look at. I'm coming in now. I'm demanding to come in now on the radio. Get me out from behind this car that has held me up for half an hour. Let's have a run at winning this race, not just following our teammates. There's Jacques Villeneuve, he comes in, so Berman can't come in this lap.
Exactly, because there is somebody in the pit box already taking up the space. Out gets Villeneuve, in will get Jos Verstappen. Takes the cushions away, and Jos Verstappen hops in, and the tyre change goes on accordingly. Now, the lead gap has come down. Nakaviki is being caught a bit by the BMWs. The gap is down to 3.8 seconds as Jos Verstappen gets in, and of course, Jacques Villeneuve has to help with the belts here. It's not like a Formula 1 race where everybody does it for you. It's all about teamwork, this. So Jacques is out of the car, but his work is not yet done.
Again, if I'm Jelmer Berman, I'm going, why are you bringing them in? They can't win the race. I can. Bring me in now. I am losing time every lap. I sit behind this other BMW.
But he's going to lose more time in the second stint because he's quicker than Mar Melnhof, so he's kind of damned either way. He's losing time by being stuck there, and he hands over to somebody who isn't quite as quick as Jelmer Berman. It's almost no win for that car now. Kekler and Lauda arguably a better place because they are very quick. They're only separated in qualifying by 3/1000ths of a second. Having said that about Mar Melnhof, he's certainly come on a lot this year. We'll see whether he can rise to the occasion, but the fastest man on track has been Fred Makaviki. He leads, and we haven't got much longer of the pit window to go, remember. We've only got just, what, 5 minutes and 40 seconds, so the teams that haven't yet brought the cars in need to get on with this, and we look and we see BMW's coming over the line, so another lap is notched up by Kekler, and another lap is notched up by Berman, and the gap has gone up again, first to second. It's up to 4.4.
Well, of course, you know why. That's because it's effectively taking 2 laps to clear the Villeneuve-Verstappen car out of the pit road. It only takes 75 seconds in duration, but that is more than 1 lap, which means it's 2 laps. So you need 6 laps to change all 3 cars without staggering them, and you don't want to stagger them.
They may end up having to do that because they're going to run out of window otherwise.
Well, they've got 5 minutes. It's going to take 2 minutes to do each of the cars. They are going to have to bring one in now. Which one will it be? Will it be the better placed? Will it be the one who's shouting the loudest on the radio? And if it is, who would that be? There's the leader going by one of them. That's going by the Corvette. The McLaren we're looking down on now. That is our race leader, Fred Makaviki. Less drama, less stress, less panic for them because Rob Bell's already been and gone nice and early. They can't win the race potentially, but this car can potentially.
And see that Makaviki, who is quicker than Dusseldorf, is maximising the available time allowed for him. He will stay out until the end of the window, take as many laps within his stint as possible to build this lead over Frank Kekler, which is now 4.3 seconds. Kekler there has certainly got Berman. He's got another slower car, one of the Conrad Porsches, between him and the other Vita41 BMW in the background as they come then now towards turn number 7. And the race with 29 minutes and change remaining as there. The yellow mirrored BMW is that of Jelmer Berman. And this is Stefano Comodini coming in later than I expected him to hand over to Matteo Bobbi. But a very good stint from Comodini. He's kept that car within the top 5. Mike Parisi, having wriggled away past, has just done his personal best lap, and Comodini now is lapping quicker than the 3 ahead of him.
Yeah, he certainly is, that Mercedes, but Parisi going very quickly indeed. And is this an incident with the wall? No, it is the 2 Vita41 Ferraris just doing the gentleman's excuse me and somehow working a way through on the inside. This was his in-lap. Well, yeah, Comodini making room for himself that didn't exist, and fortunately not actually walling his teammate. In comes Kekler. The car from second place, Frank Kekler. I tell you what, yeah, do you know what? Again, I'm sitting there from the beginning of the race thinking, if I'm Mikel Bartels, I need to talk to these guys to get the faster car in front. And then I'm thinking now, as we're getting right to the end of the pit lane, I really needed to have started the pit stopping a bit earlier with Villeneuve and Verstappen, or with these guys.
What's going to be fascinating now is to see the pace of Matthias Lauda relative to Stef Dusseldorf, because they're both quick. Stef Dusseldorf has certainly established himself as a very good GT racer in these last couple of seasons. Matthias Lauda with only 1 car race win to his name, and that came here yesterday. And he's certainly adapted well to GT cars this year, having shopped around really to find the right home for himself, whether it was single-seaters or the DTM. So he's in, tyres will be changed, and then of course once 75 seconds are up, he can floor the throttle and go out of the pits. He can be driving up the pit lane during those 75 seconds, but he can't cross the timing line until 75 seconds are up.
Lead Machiavicki is coming down pit road as well, so I was just wondering whether he would go by or not. He has not. Fred Machiavicki brings the McLaren in. It is garage number 3 at the end. You can see it in the background being lifted up off its jacks, and in as well comes the 46 car. That probably need not detain us at the moment. He was a little further down the order, but that is the car we're looking at. Fred Machiavicki, 36 Ferrari rather. There is Fred Machiavicki, and there's Mike Parisi, comes in as well, right behind him. He was second on the road. Now Jelmer Berman is the race leader, yet to stop. Yet to stop also is Christian Engelhardt in his Porsche. He's going right the way to the end of the pit window.
So Jelmer Berman now leads the way, but of course has got to serve the pit stop, and the fascination is going to be to see, of course, whether or not Lauda can maintain track position over Berman, which will become Mark Melhoff's car once that has made its pit stop, and also to make sure track position is maintained over Mike Parisi. You're thinking, well, how do you gain on a pit stop if it's to a controlled time? You can't necessarily gain, but other teams can lose. If they do a slower pit stop over the 75 seconds, then of course that plays into the hands of the opposition. Right, there is Stef Dusseldorf blasting out of the pit lane. He, of course, will have gone a lap down as Jelmer Berman is in this time, and there he is. So all the brake dust flies out of the front as he stands on the anchors. The new wheels and tyres come out. Nikolaus Marmelhoff is there as well to take over the car. A bit less panic around these pit stops compared to natural pit stops, not done to a time limit in other categories. But Berman will get out and then help to strap in Nikolaus Marmelhoff, and as that is going on, the mechanics work their way around the 4 corners of the car.
Now, the McLaren, I reckon, to be a couple of corners ahead of the 33 BMW. I think, as it settles out, that the McLaren may have gained a little time during the pit stop and certainly not lost any, and it has most certainly not lost track position to the BMW.
Another fascinating fact for you, Sean Edwards, new into number 9 Porsche, has set the fastest lap of the race. Yep. He has now done a 64.1, and that car is currently running in 7th place overall, and it's got the chance to gain a bit more ground before the end.
Bernd Schneider, new into the Mercedes, right behind that car again, has now set the fastest lap for that car, and also the previous lap, Alvaro Perez set the fastest lap for his McLaren as well. Now, don't forget, fuel load is lighter than when the first driver was on fresh tyres, and they are on fresh tyres. They've got a lighter car, fresh rubber. It should continue to get quicker and quicker for the next few laps, certainly.
So Jelmer Berman is back on track, and we'll catch up with the race order at the end of the next lap as people come over the timing line and it starts to establish itself. A warning flag is being given to car number 15, and that is for using the chicane at turn 3 or not respecting it properly. Well, 15 has been in the pit lane for a lot of this race. The Porsche has been handed over now to Tim Tevers. So the pit window is closed, and now we have the race to the flag. And I'm tempting fate in saying this, Martin, but everybody today seems to have put their intelligent head on, because we haven't had the same carnage and drama that we did yesterday. It's been a good, clean race thus far. Number 34 BMW running 8th now. Jos Verstappen is at the wheel of it, and the car that's really lost out is 57 Ferrari. Comandini was in the top 5 when he brought it in, and Matteo Bobbi is now down in 9th place in the Ferrari.
Well, I don't know whether that was a drama in the pit stop. We don't have a timing screen with the individual pit times, and off. Oh, is that a left rear wheel damage or left front wheel damage? One of them left rear.
Yeah, it's Fabio Mancini at the wheel of the Ferrari.
I'm saying that wasn't bolted on properly. That's at the first corner. That's the outlet. There's Jacques Villeneuve on the left, Jelmer Berman on the right, discussing what might happen to, well, Berman's teammate versus Kitcheler's teammate. Matthias Lauda is in 3rd behind Melnhof. So the move, the change that Berman could not get either by driving or by getting on the radio has happened. Melnhof is in front in 35 in 2nd place. Lauda in 3rd place in the 33 car. That car stopped 1 lap earlier than its teammates.
Not only is he behind, he's 3.4 seconds behind. So having been ahead, he's lost not only a place, but he's also lost a chunk of time. So Nikolaus Melnhof here is, as we hoped he would, rising to the challenge, and he's doing a very good job. Now, he has spent a season of racing the BMW. What can he do about Stef Dusseldorf up ahead of him? There is a stop-go penalty for Sean Edwards, I'm afraid to say. Number 9 Porsche, Sean Edwards, for not respecting the mandatory pit stop time. So I'm afraid to say that any hope that car had of a decent result now is about to be chucked out of the window. Stop-go penalty for the number 9 Porsche.
And unfortunately, he was in a top 6 finishing position, so that has an effect on the prize money for the car as well. And that will promote Jos Verstappen, who's in 8th, and Bernd Schneider, who is in 7th place. So they will move up Schneider into a top 6 position. Of course, moving their way through traffic once more. The race leaders will have to try and find some space. You just saw our race leader, Step Dusseldorf, going by the 21 Conrad Porsche, and that has now been handed over from Archie Hamilton to Ben Barker. Ben Barker only got a call midweek from Archie. He was talking to them this morning, and Franz Conrad, who was down to drive the car with Archie, said, "Don't you have any friends who know how to drive a Porsche?" So he got on the phone back home, said to Ben, "Right, you got 5 hours to get to the airport and get on a plane to Baku." Ben didn't even have time to Google where Baku was as he was packing his bags and jumping into the car. And hey presto, he's on the streets of Azerbaijan in this first GT race encounter here. So he's having a great weekend.
Arkin Arca getting out of the way of the Mercedes in the hands now of Maximilian Buch. There is Sean Edwards, who's got this stop-go penalty to serve. Wheel-nut drama, as I gather, was the demise of the Ferrari we saw at the escape road. Fabio Mancini, vastly experienced driver, Fabio, been around since the late 1970s. Sean Edwards' race, though, is about to evaporate, and of course Ben Schneider behind will get himself into the top 6. Now Dusseldorf is pulling away from Mar Melhoff, who is being caught a little by Matthias Lauda, so it looks as though the fight for second may shape up again. But the Hexus McLaren is still looking pretty safe up front. 21 minutes of the race remain. One of two teams here need that elusive safety car. And there, Sean Edwards goes to the inside of Arkin Arca, muscles his way through, puts a lap on the Carrera Cup Deutschland spec Porsche rather than a GT3R, which is the kind of car that Sean Edwards is behind the wheel of. Sean, very much a Porsche expert. Well, he's got the fastest lap of the race to his name, but I'm afraid when he does serve this stop-go penalty, that Villeneuve Motorsport car will tumble back down the order.
He will probably drop almost to the back of the field because it's going to take him a tortuously long time at the 60 km/h mandatory pit speed limit when everybody else is going by at up to 200 km/h at the end of that fast pit straight. So that will drop him right down the order. Meanwhile, here is our race leader, 8.4 seconds the margin now. And I was talking to Rob Bell this morning just before they were heading out to the grid. He said, to us it looks like the BMWs and the Mercedes particularly have just got faster and faster all weekend. In comes Sean Edwards. Wouldn't want to hear his intercom at the moment. It is a 1 second stop and go. Goodness me, not even a time there, just stop and off you go. But you probably lose 20-25 seconds. Have a look at his lap time on the next lap, and that'll give us an indication of the total time lost. Came in from 6th, and that's going to be a very slow lap.
So up front, Stef Dusseldorf continues to maintain an advantage. It's now 8.4 seconds, and more the traffic is starting to get in the way of those cars behind. So Dusseldorf looking very secure indeed up front. He's gone over the timing line, 36 laps are in the book, and we are now into the last 20 minutes of the 60 here in Baku for City Challenge 2012. There's the leading McLaren finding the big bump in the road. Stef Dusseldorf, he and Fred McAvicki have had a very successful season this year, runners-up in the GT1 World Championship, race winners in the Blancpain Endurance Series, and it looks as though they're going to be victorious here in Baku. Stef Dusseldorf, in a sense, has to redeem himself from yesterday because he lost out on a possible win by being really slow away from the rolling start. But here, he's doing a very, very solid job. And wide in traffic goes Mar Melhoff. He lapped the Porsche behind a motor park, and then he ran deep into the corner, and that gives Lauda a chance to come back at him on the inside, but he couldn't make amends there.
Lauda is now right in a position to attack, and that has slowed up both BMWs and will continue to. And I was just about to say, David, I'm going to say 2 words to you: Alvaro and Perret. He is the quickest man in the top 4. He is coming from behind in the McLaren. Not only is he quicker, he's quicker by 0.6 of a second per lap than these BMWs running without the mistake. There he is in that second McLaren. I'm saying he could get on the podium in 20 minutes, especially because, as we know, these two will now set about each other.
Yeah, they've done it once and avoiding contact. They've had another go, and all that was caused by Mar Melhoff going up on the inside to try to lap the Leitsker-Visser-driven Porsche and almost running out of the road, and he had to back off the throttle, and that gave Lauda the chance to challenge Mar Melhoff, his regular co-driver this season in GT1. So, at the moment, Dusseldorf is leading by a massive 11 seconds now from Mar Melhoff. Lauda is third, only 0.4 back. And in 4th place, you've got Alvaro Perret, who, as Martin rightly says, is charging.
1.4 seconds caught up on that lap. And of course, that was because they fell over each other. And in again comes... that is the 8 car, so that's Nick Tandy. Couldn't get worse for the team. Both of their cars penalised. They missed you don't remain stationary for 75 seconds. You've got to calculate how long it takes you to get to your pit box, how long it takes you to get out past the speed limiter, and that then, subtracted from 75 seconds, is how long you must remain stationary. Of course, you don't want to sit there an extra 5 or 10 seconds, but staying a second too few is absolutely a disaster.
And Milner Motorsport is not a team of dummies, let's put that aside, because it's an experienced team from GT racing, from Bell car racing, knows exactly what it's doing. But here, just a tiny miscalculation, and 35, which is Meyer Melnhof, is also being given a drive-through pit stop infringement. Now, not a stop-go, but a drive-through, which saves you a second or two. Too many mechanics working on the car is the answer for that reason. So,
because you're only allowed
the two. They must have had a third one do something which we didn't see, but that's going to put Lauda back up into second place. It's going to put Perez on the podium, as Martin was predicting, and it's going to make Michael Bartels, who is the man behind the V241 BMW team, ever so grumpy.
You can go and talk to him later. I think I may eschew that opportunity.
My mate Michael, yeah, when you get him going, he's a jolly bloke, but it'll take a bit of getting him going.
Absolutely, it'll take a few local beers to relax his mood here. And do you know what? Even without that penalty, look how much closer that McLaren is.
Absolutely.
It is right in shot now. It's not just, oh, he's right there in the background. He's all over them.
But the battle, of course, is going to carry on unaffected, because the leading BMW is the one that will get out of the way to serve that drive-through. The battle between Kettler and Perret will carry on. It's going to move up the order by one place, but it's going to carry on as it is now. And I'll say Kettler, it's Lauda at the wheel of it. It's the Kettler car, but that car 33 is stuck in traffic. Conrad Porsche ducks out of the way. Now, where does Perret try to make this move on 33 BMW? Matthias Lauda at the wheel of it. And hunting him down is Alvaro Perret.
Perret is all over this, and the McLaren comes up with so much speed, but he's got to use it now while he's got momentum, while he's travelling faster, because otherwise, like when you're following a truck on the motorway, you come up behind him, you're going quicker. If you get held up behind him, of course, unless you just want to ram him from behind, you have to slow down to his speed. Exactly, unless you has the same effect.
Do you ever get the feeling that McLaren was set up for Alvaro, not for Rob Bell, because it's the Portuguese driver who really has got the best out of it? Look at this, they've all bunched up now. Now, of course, Meyer Melnhof has got ahead for the pit lane, but he doesn't come in this time. He's losing pace anyway, and there's got to be that drive-through penalty served as well. So that's another lap, but he doesn't take it. Over the line behind him, Lauda is right on his tail. Perez is right there as well.
Again, he is holding up his teammate and making him vulnerable to attack from behind and making more mistakes, which will hold up his teammate even more. Again, I'm saying, why is Michael Bartels not on the radio going, get in now, get out of the way, give Matthias a chance to fight? He's stuck behind his teammate, he's got one hand tied behind his back, and Alvaro is hitting him with punches left, right and centre.
Here's the replay of Meyer Melnhof getting it wrong at turn 3 and going over the escape road. The only other possible reason that they've not yet brought him in is because Michael Bartels or someone from the team is arguing this with the race director and saying, no, there weren't too many mechanics, and trying to get a reprieve. We've had the change, have we not? Because the McLaren shows third now. It's gone by. So Alvaro Perez has got himself past Lauda, and he's going to be able to find a way past Meyer Melnhof. Is he on the inside? He lines up!
Meyer Melnhof, knowing he's got a penalty, has got to let him go, even though now it is a position change, and through goes Lauda as well. It is McLaren 1-2, and I tell you what, Alvaro Perez must have been feeling pretty disgusted with himself for planting the car in the barriers during qualifying and then not quite being able to find what he wanted and win race 2, because it was red flag when he was stuck behind Matthias Lauda. He is not going to let that get in the way this time. Third time lucky for the Portuguese.
Have a look at this. He dives up the inside. There was almost contact between the two. Meyer Melnhof had to get off the throttle. That delayed him and allowed Matthias Lauda through as well. And Meyer Melnhof has still not come in to take that drive-through penalty. And in fact, it has now gone off the screen. I just wonder whether or not a discussion has taken place and all things are now resolved, because Meyer Melnhof, we know, has not been in, and that message has gone from the timing screen.
Okay. Normally, that's unlikely that penalties are rescinded. However, it may have happened, and Meyer Melnhof may have been genuinely battling Perret because he knew, or he thought, there was not going to be a penalty. Whatever, he did manage to trip up his own teammate as well, and Perret has got by both of the BMWs. Okay, now I'm going to ask you another question. Alvaro Perret, can he catch Stef Dusseldorp and win this race? There's the race leader in the number 17 McLaren, 15 seconds, 12 minutes and 40 seconds. Can he even get to the leader, Perret in second place, never mind pass his teammate?
I don't think he can catch him. He can bring down the gap, and I I don't think that Philippe Dumas, who runs the team, would encourage a lead battle in the last few minutes of the race, but I reckon they'll be much closer.
So
McLaren slows right down.
That's Parent. That is Alvaro Parent. Gearbox problems in morning warm-up for Rob Bell. He said, we've got everything crossed. That yellow corner on the windscreen strip is the number 18 McLaren. It is Alvaro Parent. He is cruising into the pit lane. The gearbox has not held together, and that is the end of the question as to whether or not he can win this. I think he had the pace to catch Dusseldorp. I think he had the time to catch Dusseldorp, and I'm not sure that you would have stopped him trying to pass him. But suddenly the car coasting, and back into second and third go the BMWs. They have been handed a get-out-of-jail-free card.
A second one, possibly in the case of 35, because that's, of course, lost its penalty. News on that we have not yet got. Hexis look on at the timing screens. They'll be on the radio to Alvaro, who looks like the car might have got jammed in first gear there. It said 1 on the display, perhaps not being able to accelerate out of the corner, perhaps stuck in gear, and there's another car stranded on the track, and this could be a safety car, couldn't it?
That's Ben, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's the Michael Christensen car, the Danish driver.
Pardon, yes, it is.
So Michael Christensen, part of the Porsche Junior team in the Conrad car, stranded on the circuit now, he says, rubbing his hands together. Can we have a safety car, Mr. Race Director, Oliver Grodowski, and bunch everybody up? Because if we can get somehow Lauda into touch with Steph Dusseldorp with 11 minutes to go, we could be really in business for a cracking finish. As it stands, there are 15.5 seconds between the top two. Drive-through penalty for Matteo Bobbi, speeding in the pit lane.
Their race is getting worse and worse. They were in top 6 contention, and there you see Michael Christensen, the Dane. He is parked at the side of the track in the number 20 Conrad car. Christian Engelhardt took it through almost to the end of the pit window. So in fact the sister car, Archie Hamilton and Ben Barker, they are still in the race. Drive-through penalty. No, it's not here. Carry on, carry on. No.
Drive-through does not mean stop.
No, he's come and stopped. I think there is a degree of flappery going on here. I've had enough of this. I'm getting out.
Right, Matteo Bobbi, yes. Very, very disgruntled with life. So gets out of the car. There's Jos Verstappen in the background, and Matteo Bobbi then is a retirement, seemingly, from the race. I'm still curious to know why this penalty has disappeared for 35. It can only be a discussion has taken place, I'm sure, but yeah, it's not totally unheard of for penalties to be rescinded, but there it was on the screen. The stewards will have had the information from the race director and applied it, and a conversation has happened. We're into the last 10 minutes of the race. Then we have McLaren, BMW and BMW. Up into 4th place is Ben Schneider. 5th is the sister Mercedes, Maximilian Buch at the wheel of it. 6th, despite his stop-go penalty, is Sean Edwards. So that car is still looking good to be in the top 6, and that is a fine effort. In 7th place now is the 34 Verstappen BMW. In 8th place is 58, the surviving Vita41 Ferrari and Greg Franchi, and the safety car is now being deployed, not unexpectedly. 9th is Nick Tandy, and 10th is Arkin Arka in number 88. So it's because of the Porsche stranded by the side of the circuit. Now, the next question is, how many back markers are there between the top 2 cars?
There is the Porsche on the exit between turn 5 and turn 6. It is way offline, and a lot of race directors would leave it there for the duration of the race under yellow flags. However, see Michael Christensen here. I think the car possibly just rolls a little bit out of control. Yeah, there's Philippe N going through in the matte blue machine, and Christensen, again, that's looking like a lack of drive. In most cars, most times, that will be an electronics issue. He will have stopped and done Control-Alt-Delete a number of times, pressed everything, twiddled everything, kicked everything a couple of times, and walked away from it. And the safety car is waiting at turn 7 to pick up our race leader. And he will accelerate away when he's told on the radio.
Not quickly enough, but thankfully, Steph Dusseldorp reacts to that. And the safety car joins in at pit exit, picks up the race leader. But, yes, Steph Dusseldorp made life easy for the officials there, didn't he, by braking to slot in behind the safety car. Now, how long is it going to take to move this car out of the way? It's not the moving that's the time-consuming bit, it's getting the snatch vehicle there in order to drag it clear and up the escape road. After that, we should be OK.
Again, we've only got 8 minutes left. It is so far off the racing line, even the drift cars haven't left rubber marks there. I'm saying that we are going to end up with a checkered flag coming out with a flatbed truck on there trying to load that on. Look, there's a drag it off-road there. If he could only have got it a few metres further up on the starter motor, he could probably actually have driven it off the circuit. That's assuming that there is a starter motor still working to get it there. But I would like not to have seen the safety car scrambled. It is a long way away from being in the way. you'd have to be very ambitious to get alongside somebody between 5 and 6 that far off the racing line.
As I've seen 2 GT championships end either behind a safety car and or with a red flag in the last couple of months. We don't really want another race to go the same way. Steph Dusseldorp, though, to be fair to him, he leads the race. His pace will now be reduced and people will close on him under the safety car conditions like this, but he's done a great job. Earlier battles, of course, involving the Milner Motorsport Porsche and 57 Stefano Comodini, who went up the escape road, so he did lose some time by going way wide. And then we had the great little battle early on between the BMWs, and now, of course, with Alvaro Parent's McLaren expiring, that has given Matthias Lauda second place back, and Nicolas Melnhof is in 3rd spot, and the McLaren is parked.
Yep.
No further participation from Alvaro
He
Parent.
certainly had gear selection, but only from 1 to N.
There's your Ferrari with its wheel drama, wheel nuts having sheared off the car. Fabio Mancini loops it round and parks it out of harm's way.
You say sheared off, I'm not entirely certain that wasn't his outlap from the pits. It was very close to the exit of the pit road, and the wheel was very definitely not remotely attached. I think that the...
We've done one, I'll check. But
it may not have gone on the wheel lugs properly and just machined the nuts loose. They are designed, the wheel nuts go on in the opposite direction to the way the wheel turns to try and not loosen themselves.
Mikhail Bartels is now being summoned to the race director. So the question mark over penalty, what penalty, says the institution of Michael Bartels, continues because they've clearly ignored it, and now the race director wants to find out why.
Well, in which case, if he's ignored it, why was it not on the screen, and why was he not instantly black flagged? There are ways of doing this in FIA racing. If you ignore a penalty to come into the pits, you are disqualified. There can be no question about it. So calling him in with 5 minutes of the race remaining when everything's behind a safety car is slightly neither here nor there, because the car will remain on track. And actually what you want is a WYSIWYG result. What you see is what you get. The cars on the track at the end, 1, 2 and 3, are 1, 2 and 3, not 1, 2 and one of those other guys who was behind that we didn't see.
Yes, and also, what is the result? Because if it goes to the stewards and then it's appealed, we could be waiting for that to be decided weeks ahead, and that's not what we want at all.
Exactly. We wanted to finish in a nice rounded way. Now the Porsche is out of the way. We should be on our last lap of the safety car. The Porsche has been towed to a place of safety, so hopefully at the end of timing sector 2 between corners 10 and 11, 2/3 of the way round this lap, we should see the lights go off on the safety car.
Can we get Bernd Schneider onto the podium? He's a 1.5 seconds behind Nicolas Melnhof, and there is one back marker between them, and it's the Ferrari there you can see heading down the back straight. But the way that Bernd Schneider has gone this weekend, wouldn't surprise me if he couldn't wriggle away past Melnhof and snatch 3rd place away, and that would be a great result for Bernd Schneider, and good also for the event to have a different brand represented in the top 3.
Yeah, 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 would be great, and again Bernd will be a very good representative in the interviews and on the grid. Safety car will come in at the end of this lap, so it'll be not quite green-white checker, but as the sun starts to set in the west, we will head into the final 4 minutes of this race, and that will be basically a little over a 3-lap sprint. Everybody behind trying to catch up. The leader is gone. That's it. Safety car is in. The McLaren has raced away. There is a Porsche behind him on the road, which is the 88 car of Hakim Ara.
Schneider getting on in his quest to get himself through the traffic.
No, he hasn't got by the
He's still got Greg Forshey ahead of him, so he needs to find a way through. Can Melnhof, in the meantime, come back at Matthias Lauda?
Well, Schneider's flashing headlights are going to burn the paint off the back of the Ferrari. But the Ferrari will be getting the blue flags. He must know that he's a lap down.
And not only is Schneider attacking, he's having to defend as well, because Maximilian Buch is right there behind him. Verstappen is mired in slower traffic as he works his way through Corvettes and Porsches. But it's all happening here, isn't it? Because you've got Schneider trying to attack and defend at the same time. Right there behind him is Maximilian Buch.
And the white Porsche behind them is Sean Edwards, who has got his tail up, and he is ready to attack as well. That's 2nd, 3rd, interloper, 4th, 5th and 6th. 3 minutes remaining in the race, and not much more than that of sunshine either.
Exactly, it's going to look very endurance GT racing, isn't it, if they have to put the headlights on right to the very end. What have we got left? 3 minutes to go. Sean Edwards, quickest man in the race. Steph Dusseldorp is the man who leads them, and he comes over over the line with 50 laps done. He's only 5.3 seconds ahead of Lauda now, so certainly the gap much reduced thanks to the safety car. But because the BMWs are so busy trying to trip over themselves, he should be able to build that lead once again. And Schneider has still not been able to find a way past Greg Franchi in the 8th place Ferrari, and there it is ahead of us.
Well, Franchi should be getting a penalty by now. He's ignored blue flags frequently because Schneider is a lap ahead of him. Franchi is ruining a battle for the podium here.
And look at Edwards up the inside to try and get past Baku. Is he going to do it? He tries to Mercedes spins. Porsche makes contact. Nick Tandy is there behind them, but Sean Edwards has muscled a way through. Well, maybe that was the only way to do it.
Has he got damage? It's 2 minutes to go. Of course there's going to be some contact if push comes to shove. It will come to shove, and he goes through. Sean Edwards moves up. The stewards might not like that later, but at the moment he is in 5th position, and he moves by the back marker, so does Bull. But Edwards with half a chance up the inside, and that's all you get on a street circuit. And look, Schneider's still trying to get by the Ferrari in the background, or the long round of the shot. Still can't get through, or does he? Look, let's follow that shot a little. Yeah. Bartels there impassively in the hat and the headset watching the action.
So to Jacques Villeneuve, whose car is currently in 7th place, and there is Philippe Dumas, the man behind Hexis Racing, whose car still leads by 6 seconds with a minute and a half to go. What's he going to get out of the race now? 1 more lap, 2 more laps? I think it's going to be 2 more.
Lap, I reckon. He's halfway round. It'll be another 35, 40 seconds before he gets to the line.
Car 35, no further action. So he's had a penalty. The team manager has been summoned to the race director, and now no further action. So whatever the officials thought they saw, they've been talked out of.
Schneider's got by the Ferrari. It's taken far too long. That was absolutely rubbish driving by the Ferrari, but Schneider has got through. He's free. He's got a minute. He's got a lap and a quarter to get to and get by the 35 car by Melnhof. And again, like Nick Tandy, if there's even the sniff of an overlap, the long bonnet of the Mercedes will be inside. The man on the outside is always the one in trouble. 50 seconds remain. It's more than a 50-second lap. This is the last lap of the City Challenge 2012. The McLaren that started on pole, that has led all the way through since the pit stops, is now leading around the last lap here in Baku, Azerbaijan.
And the gap is widening as well as Stef Dusseldorf then drops down to 1st gear for turn 7. He's continuing to get away from Matthias Lauda in 2nd place. Nicolas Melnhof is there 3rd. Now, how is Bernd Schneider getting on? Because as far as sectors are concerned, he's going to have to be on his toes, and he is quicker in sector 1 by half a second. He's going to need 1 more lap, I fear, but it's going to be mighty close for 3rd place. He's been plain sailing, really, for this 17 Hexis McLaren all weekend. Fred Makovicki has had 1 win as a soloist. He's going to have a joint win with Stef Dusseldorf, but the real question marks that still have to be answered, Martin, are going on behind.
Well, Dusseldorf has really risen to the challenge. There's no question he's going to bring this car to the line now, barring some monumental failure. He's through the final chicane. He is going to take victory in the City Challenge. Behind him in 2nd place will be Matthias Lauda, but who's going to get to the line? Hold the shot. Here comes the BMW. Here comes the BMW. And here comes the Mercedes. Schneider not close enough. 1 last lap would have been enough for a lunch. He takes 4th position in the Mercedes, ahead of Sean Edwards in 5th spot and Maximilian Buch in 6th position. Wow.
Schneider was only 0.395 of a second away from the BMWs. We said he might need 1 more lap. Had he had it, it might have been a different looking podium. What a race.
Or had that Ferrari not held him up for 4 or 5 minutes. Again, that was appalling driving by a backmarker who knew he was in the final 5 minutes of the race and was deliberately holding up somebody who might have been in a chance of scoring a podium finish.
Greg Franchi was the man behind the wheel of that car. As you see, Fred Makovicki, a very happy man, congratulating and being congratulated by the Hexis engineers. Rob Bell looking pretty chuffed as well, even though his car didn't get to the end. It's been a good result for the team and a good result for McLaren. BMW's then 2nd and 3rd. Matthias Lauda then carrying on the good work of Frank Kechler to take 2nd spot. Nicolas Melnhof, that little error when he was forced wide by Parent cost him a couple of places. He got 1 back with the demise of the McLaren, so he and Jelmer Berman end up 3rd. And Bernd Schneider and Sergei Afanasiev 4th, 5th, Sean Edwards and Karim Al-Azari, despite a stop-go penalty, don't forget, and 6th, despite being turned around by Sean Edwards, Maximilian Buch and Mike Parisi. Well, it may have been a relatively easy time for the 17 McLaren, but everybody else has had a fairly busy 60 minutes in Baku.
I tell you what, the spectators have really had their money's worth. That did not turn into a dull procession from the moment they started to the moment they finished. There was every chance we were going to see fireworks, and so we have. McLaren win the City Challenge here in Baku, Azerbaijan, from pole position. It'll look like it was a pretty straightforward affair, anything but a late race safety car. Well, it was great presence of mind by Stef Dusseldorp to restart so quickly and get away from the battles behind and leave themselves to it.
He learnt his lesson from yesterday, didn't he, when he made a really pop start in the solo race that he took part in. Well, he certainly wasn't going to be caught napping a second time. Yes, he says. He gets out of the car a happy man, and Stef Dusseldorp then takes victory with Fred Macavicki.
Well, he's really done himself a lot of favours here, because he was handed a car in the lead and he didn't just take it and hold the lead. He built the lead over rivals behind him that were in cars that have proven to be at least as quick. So yeah, absolutely great job by him. Dutchman and Frenchman on the top step of the podium. Best Ferrari, incidentally, was the lap car of Greg Franchi in 8th position. So wasn't a great day for the Ferrari teams, and that car is normally very competitive in almost any environment.
And what still mystifies me a bit is why Matteo Bobbi had his out-of-pram experience, came in for a drive-through and just parked it and walked away. OK, maybe there was a problem in the car which we didn't know about, but it did seem a little bit temperamental, to say the least, that, as Stef Dusseldorp celebrates with the Hexes guys.
It might well have been, Ben Schneider offers his congratulations, it might well have been that Bobby was really struggling with something in the car, and he said, mate, you've got a penalty. He said, oh, well, in that case, you know what? Yeah, you can have it back and fix it.
There's beer to drink. So, either way, we lost one Ferrari, and, of course, we lost the car of Fabio Mancini with the wheel drama that it suffered, as Jelmer Berman. In the background, Frank Kekler and Matthias Lauda is in the green crash helmet. Nikolaus Malmhoff, who I've got to say did a better job in that stint than I was anticipating.
Well,
yes, he made a mistake, but he did a good job nonetheless.
He's got quicker and quicker and quicker as the weekend has got on, and that's a confidence thing. First ever street circuit for him. You know, quite a lot of the guys he's racing with have done that before. Maybe in Porsche Super Cup, maybe in some other single-seater racing, but for him, first ever time, you know, David, it's got to be intimidating.
Oh, absolutely right. And isn't it interesting to see how not only his confidence has improved over the weekend, but everybody. That race was a far better, far cleaner race. Yesterday we didn't have lots of people driving into each other, but we did have them driving into things and causing damage. And in that race, people, OK, we lost one car causing a safety car through a mechanical problem, but everybody was far more intelligent because they're more confident in the circuit, they're more experienced in the circuit. A driver's briefing was called for at lunchtime, and the race director had a word or two in stern terms with the drivers, and he has just put a message to them on the timing screen to say thank you, because we got through unscathed. Yes, there was a safety car, but there was no real damage. One or two mechanical maladies, and McLaren wins in Baku with Fred Macavicki and Stef Dusseldorp taking the win by 4.5 seconds from the BMW. In second place, Vita 4-1 of Frank Kekler and Matthias Lauda. In third place, the sister car of Jelmer Berman and Nikolaus Malmhoff. Fourth, Ben Schneider and Sergei Afanasiev. Fifth, the best of the Porsches, Sean Edwards and Karim Al-Azri, despite the stop-go penalty. Sixth, Mike Parisi and Maximilian Buch in the Mercedes. And what about this for seventh? Jacques Villeneuve and Jos Verstappen ahead of Louis Machiels and Greg Franchi in the best Ferrari. Ninth, local resident, the Canadian Mark Thomas, who lives in Baku with Nick Tandy, Nick doing another ripper charge. And 10th, Archie Hamilton and Ben Barker ahead of Elia Earhart and Philip Eng, and Nicky Tim and Arkin Arka, who in the end only had one car between them. There was a plan to drive two, but only one of them started. They got it home in 12th place.
Well, there are the remaining finishing orders, and as David said, we didn't lose anybody to an actual accident. We had a wheel come off a Ferrari, we had a couple of mechanical issues, including Bob Bell and Alvaro Perent's McLaren, which was 11 laps down at the end, but certainly when it failed on them, unfortunately, it was from second position. McLaren looking very strong here. A street race, something that perhaps the car was never really fully designed for, but you've got to say that the Hexes team really adapted what they brought from long-distance tracks to the tight confines of the street circuit here in Baku. And as the sun starts to go down, I think perhaps the residents of Azerbaijan and everybody else involved in the City Challenge would echo that to the teams. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being fully committed, and thank you for putting on a fantastic race. It's been really, really enjoyable. It could You know, we've seen races on street circuits that just are follow my leader. This was about as exciting as any race you'll see on any track. And so for people who've come here for their first ever live motor race, boy, they've had an afternoon.
Absolutely right. There was always something going on, wasn't there? Something about to happen or happening, and some great battles. And of course, we could only see some of them because we can only have one picture on the screen, but there were fights going on all the way through the order. And in third place, the BMW of Jelmer Burman and Nicholas Malhoff. Well, Jelmer really charged, and don't forget they got a good pit stop, or it was a poorer pit stop for the 33 car that allowed that up into second place. Malhoff making that little error that dropped him back behind Matthias Lauda and behind Alvaro Parent. The McLaren retired, and so the car back up into the top three, and third place goes the way of car 35. The second place BMW, that of Frank Kechler, who did a very good job in the early stint, but again the BMWs just did not seem to work as well early on as the McLaren, struggling perhaps a little bit on cold tyres. But as the race wore on, so the BMWs got stronger. Trouble was the McLaren had already pulled that gap, and the McLaren in question is the race-winning Hexis car, number 17. It was started by Fred Makovici, and he built up the lead, and Fred yet again proving that he is one of the top GT racers around. And Stef Dusseldorf continuing to enhance his reputation, because when he got behind the wheel, not only did he not put a wheel wrong, he also had something extra to contend with, and that of course was the restart. He had to first of all make sure that everything was done properly under the safety car procedure, and then he had to get the restart done properly and maintain the advantage in the final few minutes of the race. Two very deserving winners in Fred Makovici and Stef Dusseldorf.
Well, quick thinking by him and the team. When the safety car was scrambled, it was not up to speed as he came past the pit, and he stood on the brakes very firmly to make sure that the safety car driver had a chance to pull in front of him, rather than have to spend another lap getting cycled back, or possibly even run into a penalty. So heads up by both the team and the driver for avoiding any potential disasters. Well, the sun is fast setting on what has been a really enjoyable weekend in Baku, Azerbaijan, and reflecting off the buildings around us on this street circuit. So Baku now officially does have international motor racing and an FIA-approved street circuit. And do you know what? If anybody else gets a call up, do you want to come to the City Challenge 2013? I think word will have spread, and there will be a lot of drivers very eager to do it, because everybody, I think, who's come away from here will be going back with glowing references and saying, you should have been there.
The problem they've got for next year is limiting the number of teams that want to come, because it's a finite length of pit lane, and we're not going to be able to get too many more teams in. But what an entry it has been, and we've had some great racing. And when people have been saying, why are you off to Azerbaijan for a motor race? Well, we just had the answer, because a cracking race it turned out to be.
Absolutely.
Well, the drivers are making their way now to the podium, and there you can see them getting on their Hankook caps. Hankook having supplied the tyres, not just to the DTM this year, but now also to GT racing. Stef Dusseldorf making sure his fits, and there in the black overalls over his left shoulder, Philippe Dumat, the man that runs the team.
Glad to see no Kimi Raikkonen capri going on there. None of that flat brim nonsense. We're not rock stars, we're racing drivers. Let's curl our caps before we get up onto the podium. And wisely so. And the flame towers, they're shimmering in the last glimmers of sunlight here in Azerbaijan, and in half an hour or so, when the sun has gone, they will be that colour, green, red and blue. The colours of the national flag will be shimmering all over them. City Challenge, first ever. You got to put that a big tick in the box. That is an enormous achievement to bring everything here. Let's not just, you know, underestimate this. If we're in Berlin, it's a country that's got a motor racing infrastructure. In Azerbaijan, it didn't. Today, it does. It knows that it can pull off a major international event like the Eurovision Song Contest, a shiny floor show. Now it knows it can pull off something diametrically opposite, a greasy track show, a racing car show, and really wow the crowds with that as well.
15,000 grandstand seats, all of them imported from Germany for this. 1,450 concrete blocks for the circuit, another 40 for the pit lane, all of which have had to be imported. That pit building, you can see the white structure there, has had to be built and bought and constructed and imported specially for this event. So a lot of people have done a huge amount of work on this circuit, and work began on October the 15th. It was done and dusted by the 25th of October, and 30 trucks were used, mainly of course coming into work on the circuit at night to bring in and take away things because of the traffic locally. So the podium is coming up shortly, and the drivers who managed to avoid most of the 276 tyre stacks We've had that 140-metre-long tent for the pit building, as I say, brought specially, and 1,000 people have been brought to run the event this weekend. So there is Steph Dusseldorf, Fred Makovici making their way up onto the top step of the podium as the winners of City Challenge 2012.
Well, massive congratulations to them. Fred Makovici and his teammate both qualifying very strongly in their car, and Makovici winning his sprint race, and then the car starting from pole for the feature and claiming victory. The Hex's team celebrating as well they might. Attention to detail being everything in top flight motor racing, whether it's the grubby bits or the grubby oiks.
There's your second place team. Frank Keckler walks onto the podium ahead of Matthias Lauda. Well, Vita 4-1, which has carried the colours of City Challenge throughout its season of international racing, certainly gave a best shot to try to take the win, but it wasn't possible in the 60-minute race. And for third place, Jelmer Berman and Nicolas Marr-Malhoff. And it's a good result for both of them, that, because they both suffered impacts at Donington Park. Marr-Malhoff was involved in a crash early in the race, and Jelmer Berman having that big accident in the final few minutes of the GT1 closer. It's good to see him back and going so quickly. And there, Hartmut Beyer in the white shirt, discussing with some of the dignitaries his brainchild, because he is the man behind City Challenge. I think he can fold his arms at the end of this with a job well done.
Job absolutely well done, yes. Jelmer Berman, in fact, admitted to feeling just a little bit still off balance at the beginning of the week here, and then being poisoned by fumes from the paint burning off inside the car at the beginning of his race probably didn't help him much either. So the commercial director of AZMDF here in Azerbaijan is presenting the winners' trophies.
Fred Makovici receives his. Handshakes all round. I think it's one trophy per team that's been given. So Fred Makovici saying, is this for me, or do I have to share it? Well, there is Hartmut Beyer himself, who steps forward to hand over the team-winning trophy. And the CEO of City Challenge, Hartmut Beyer, who was involved in the original street race in Bucharest when City Challenge was part of the SRO-run FIA GT Championship. And Hartmut Beyer shakes hands with his drivers that have come to support the event this weekend. And there should be another trophy, I reckon, which will go the way of course, Steph Dusseldorf at the other end of the podium. Here it is. So the trophy, no, indeed, it goes the way of the second-placed drivers. So it's one for the drivers, plural, and one for the winning team. Now the trophy is given to Frank Keckler on behalf of him and Matthias Lauda.
Well, the drivers at least get a bottle of Spumante each, so there'll be plenty to go around. Jelmer Berman receives the trophy for the third-place team. And that is a fine return to form for the Dutchman, as you say, after an FIA season that ended with not the result that he and certainly very many other people wanted. It all came to a bit of a grinding halt for him. However, he returns to strong form here on the streets of Azerbaijan. And for everybody, bringing the cars home undamaged was job number one, and these guys have done it at better speed than anybody else. The grid girls not fast enough to move now.
You notice how the modern generation opens champagne. You don't try and force the cork out of the bottle, you whack it on the floor and let the pressure burst the cork out the top.
Kids, where's your tradition?
I know. It wasn't like that in our day, Martin, was it? So there you go.
Did we have a day?
Celebrations in Baku. 3 of the top GT teams, 2 of the top GT brands, and a whole new circuit is launched, and a whole new audience will leave the city centre of Baku, I think, pretty well impressed with the day it's had. Drifting, classic Grand Prix cars have been here as well, and a very, very good 60-minute GT race, which has had drama, it's had incident, it's had overtaking, it's had lots of talking points, and it has certainly been a great way to launch motorsport in Azerbaijan.
I tell you something for nothing, I don't want to be sweeping that lot up either. Everybody covered in gold, and I think everybody covered in glory. All the teams have really got into this wholeheartedly. It may have taken a little bit of persuasion, a little bit of positive PR to try and get people involved, but those that have committed and those that have come, those that have trusted Helmut Beyer at his word, I think they've done themselves proud, and they've really brought something very special, and as a result they've been rewarded as well. This is a weekend that none of them are going to forget in a hurry.
The event was only launched in July, and a lot of work has gone on, not just to get the circuit ready, but the entry as well, as you say. So it has been a great event here in Baku. The cars glistening under the gold, and there's the Red Bull helmet of Matthias Lauda, the man who was part of that second-placed combination of drivers.
Look at the glint of gold down there at the end of the pit lane. That's not the sun reflecting off anything. That is just gold bits of tape all over the place. That's a real ticker tape reception. Now, I did see down there in the melee somewhere Hayley Coxon. It would be a great opportunity if we could to catch up with some of the drivers of our podium finishing cars, and I'm sure she will be wrestling her way in between lots of sweaty young men smelling of champagne. If we can get a quick word, more champagne being sprayed, so she might have to be a little bit on her toes. I think the party is starting already. Well, there you can see Freda Makiewicz in the background with teammate Steph Dusseldorp. They have really done a superb job. The sun setting behind the old city of Azerbaijan and behind the skyscrapers of the new city. Well, everybody from first to last in this race can really think back on a very great weekend of achievement, of entertainment, of fun, a warm welcome in a country that none of them bar a couple had ever visited before, and a great weekend for us as well. Hopefully you have enjoyed yourselves too. The City Challenge 2012 will be a weekend that we will remember for a long while. So from Baku, Azerbaijan, goodbye for now.